Welcome back to the Fabrique podcast. This is a podcast where we sit down with professional football players, coaches, or anyone that can give you the edge on your path to becoming a professional soccer player. Today we've got Justin Haak. He's from New York City, and he's a professional soccer player in MLS. Currently, he plays with NYCFC. Justin, welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me here.
So for those that may not know you, Justin, tell them where you're from and how you first fell in love with soccer.
Yeah, so I'm from New York. I grew up in the East Village, Lower East Side. Then when I was about 7, 8 years old, me and my family moved to Bushwick, Brooklyn. And I've always played in the city. Started at Chelsea Piers, then moved to Med Oval, and then once the academy started, I joined at 13 all the way through. At 17, I signed for the first team. And then, I fell in love with the game pretty much through my dad, who was the one who introduced me at Chelsea Piers, but I was actually doing gymnastics before, and I broke my arm. And then I couldn't do gymnastics anymore, so I just started doing soccer because I didn't need my arm for it. And then after that, I just kept going.
What's your background? Like, where are your parents from? Where did the interest in soccer come from?
Yeah, my mom is from Iran, where like they obviously follow soccer. She wasn't that big into it, but my dad, who's from Czech Republic, was the one in the family who was like really into watching soccer. He was a big Arsenal fan, and he's the one that really got me into it.
Who was your team growing up?
My team was Chelsea because, like I said, my first team was Chelsea Piers. So when I was younger, I kind of like just saw Chelsea, and was like, oh, it's the same team, so I'm going to support them.
You're like the exact type of kid, La Fabrique is hoping to help take on the same journey you did. Tell us what it was like playing in New York as a kid. What is the culture like? What was maybe the pros and cons of playing as a kid?
I think you hear a lot of people say like it's difficult to play because everyone's always playing like basketball or football, and that's true in some ways, but I think I was very lucky because especially in like elementary school, I'd have a good group of, there was like 3 or 4 of us that were very good at soccer. So we'd play every recess, like, I don't know, I don't remember exactly, but like 4v4, 5v5 in the yard with like the fences as the goals. And then after school, we'd go to the park, and one goal would be like 2 trees, and then another one the fence, and I would always just be playing. And then once I started getting a little bit older, I started joining the academies in Med Oval, and I think they have really good academy options once you get a bit older. But when you're younger, you really need that, like, just playing every single day is the most important thing you can do.
So you managed to find that in a city that like loved basketball.
Yeah, and I also played like basketball and football growing up a lot, but I was very lucky to have a good group of friends that all watch soccer, all really enjoy playing soccer, so I had a lot of that growing up.
You think those were key moments, like just playing every day?
I think just between those ages of when you're 6 to maybe 10, 11, just all the time with the ball, getting used to playing with teammates and just nonstop playing the game is what was really key for me to become the player I am.
And then obviously you've had bigger steps. Take us then to the next step when you went to Med Oval and like when maybe you started to think like, okay, like I could do this.
Definitely Med Oval was, I would say, the next big step after Chelsea Piers because it's more of an organized academy. They were in the development academy, which I think now has changed to like MLS Next Pro. But that's when it starts getting, the coaches are more serious. I had a coach that was from England. His name was Paul Buckle. He helped me a lot growing up. He was the one that started playing me in this number 6 role. And he's one that really believed in me. And he told me at a young age that I could go pro. I had another coach, Hugo Guzman, who also came to NYCFC with me after, who helped me a lot. And I think that organized level of Med Oval where you're competing against like Red Bulls Academy, Gachi, the top teams in the area. And then after that, because of Med Oval, I was able to take the next step and join NYCFC, which again is the next step up because now you're playing with the best kids in the area. You're competing in showcases versus FC Dallas, LA Galaxy, all the best academies, and that's what really shows you the level around the country and gets you the good experiences.
Do you remember, obviously it's kind of easy to say it now, but back then, you don't necessarily know if you even believe if you can make it. Like how important was them telling you that? And do you remember moments where you're like, oh yeah, I am good enough?
I think, like I said, when Paul Buckle told me that he told me exactly. I remember like it was yesterday. Like I see it in your eyes that you can make it pro or you have a chance. Because of course nothing is guaranteed. But I'm 22 today. I was maybe 10 or 11 when he told me that. So for it to stick with me 10 years later, it definitely made a massive difference, and it just kept pushing me every day to try to get better. I had another coach that told me we're gonna work just like 10 minutes extra today after training. And imagine when you do 10 minutes every single day, how it's gonna add up. So it's like those coaches that they're like next level coaches almost. They can give you those types of experiences and motivation to really take the next level.
So it's almost because they've been at a higher level, you can trust their work.
Yeah, and they understand the game a little bit more, so that also helps you listen to them and take what they have to say.
How key were those like 10 minutes a day?
Uh-huh.
Do you think that was a big thing for you?
I think that's a big thing because when I was younger, there was a few players that I would say were probably better than me, and now some of them aren't as far along in the game as I am, and I think that's really just down to me working as hard as I could every day, putting in extra work whenever I could.
Take us then at what moment when you get the call up from NYC. Take us through like right before that happens, when it happens, because obviously that's a big step.
So like the process started about a year before the academy started. They started doing training centers, and they had some coaches come from I think Man City's academy, and that's when I was like really thinking like it's possible to make it, and I was a little bit nervous at first but I think it's normal, and then slowly I got started getting invited to more and more training centers, and that's when I kind of got a little bit more comfortable and realizing I could really make the academy and then play for the MLS team where I'm from, where I was born. And slowly, after a year, they finally narrowed it down, and we had a preseason with about 20-something players. And then from there, we just had a really good U14 team that we beat almost everybody. We lost maybe 1 or 2 games throughout the whole year, but I think that experience with the academy really set me up and showed me how close I was to making it pro.
And I think, were you the first ever academy team, or?
We were the first ever academy team. So I was a bit lucky then as well because they started with the U14 age group, which was perfect age for me, and that obviously was out of my control, but it helped me a lot.
That was a pretty legendary academy team. So
Yeah.
Can you say some of the players that were there with
Yeah, just we had Joe Scally who plays in Gladbach, Gio Reyna who plays at Dortmund. From the first team now, we had Nico was on that team. Alex Randall, the goalie, was on that team, and then the next year we brought in like James Sands joined, Dante Polvaro who's playing in Scotland, Kwaku, JJ, all these guys with the first team. Tavon joined, Andres as well. Like almost everyone from that you see playing with the first team now was on these teams.
Was Gio Reyna part of that team, or he was?
He was on these teams.
How was the mentality in that team? It's obviously was very high, right?
Yeah. I think the training levels were very high level. We had a great coach U14 year. His name was Jose. He coached at Real Madrid, and he taught us so many tactics that I don't think was normal for 12, 13-year-olds to be getting taught, and that was a big reason why I think we're able to understand the NYCFC philosophy now, which is like build up from the back, keep possession, because a lot of teams, they just kick it, they care about winning. They'll pick the biggest, strongest kids and just go to try to beat everybody. But we focus a lot on tactics, playing with the ball, technique. And I think that's what helped all these players, develop to reach high levels.
It sounds like throughout coaching is such a key, huh?
Yeah, I think coaches play a massive role in, your own development, but also just giving the kids the right opportunities when they're ready. Because, for example, in NYCFC, if you were too good for your age group or it was a bit too easy, they'd push you up, and that's a coaching decision. And then you get that experience playing against older, faster guys. You have to change your game, and also just the little advice they give you, as well as the tactics or the actual soccer advice. There's also the life part of it.
So it matters. It's not just training every day. It matters where you're training.
Yeah, 100%. Especially, like in terms of us, we were the best group of kids in the city, and training like that 4 or 5 times a week and then playing together, it's only gonna increase the speed of which you're getting better.
While you were at the academy, you were invited to some training sessions that had Patrick Vieira as a coach,
Yeah.
David Villa, Frank Lampard,
Pirlo, all these guys, yeah.
First of all, what was that like?
Yeah.
And what were some things that you remember, like right away, picking up from each of them?
The first session I remember very well because after we had lunch and got to sit right next to Lampard, so he was giving me similar advice about working hard every single day, and I just remember being because I was a fan of Chelsea, so I always watched Lampard going up a lot, so I was very nervous at that time. I was only like 12 or 13, but from watching these guys, I just remember their habits being so good. Like Pirlo would sometimes run after training. David Villa would always be first one in the treatment room, prepping his body for the games and training. And just like little things like that, always taking really good care of himself.
What about from Patrick Vieira?
Patrick Vieira, I learned a lot from him actually. In my first preseason, he was the coach there. I remember very well him saying his main job is to treat everybody the same, from the young players to the most senior players. He did a great job, keeping everything super professional, disciplined. And I think discipline was a big thing that I learned from him because obviously you're disciplined as a kid, but you don't really know just how serious it is at the pro level. So seeing that from someone like Patrick Vieira, who's done everything, I think was a great experience.
Can you give us an example, of something maybe that showed that?
Like a little thing is when we would have meals, you'd have to wait for everybody to get there, and then once everyone is there, David, the captain, he'd be the first one to go, get everyone started, and then everyone would follow him. And it's like little things like that you don't really think too much about it, or even sometimes you think it's like annoying, but it just builds a discipline in the team, and it keeps everyone, really focused.
You mentioned the preseason. I know this. I want you to tell the story, but you had maybe one of the most epic first minutes with the first team that I've seen. The team was in preseason in Mexico.
Yeah.
And I'll let you take it away. What happened?
Yeah, so basically, I wasn't even supposed to be on the trip, originally, but I got invited like after my training, me and Joe Scally together, and we were losing in the game. So me and Joe were warming up, and then a few fans behind me started just like calling me Cavani, like screaming Cavani, asking me like, do I speak Spanish, in Spanish or what? So I would just ignore it. And then slowly, more and more fans started doing it. And by the time I went in, the whole stadium started chanting Cavani, Cavani. And then every time I touched the ball, they would jump up like someone has scored a goal. And I don't know, 15 or 16 at the time. I could never imagine something like it. And then I had one run where I dribbled a little bit and megged the guy. And it was like the loudest the stadium had been the whole game, but it was crazy. And after the game, we got back to the hotel and we had just lost, so like everyone was super pissed. But there was like fans waiting right outside the hotel for like pictures and stuff. It was crazy.
What team was that against?
St. Louis, Atlético St. Louis.
How was that to have that whole stadium crazy for you?
It was.
You probably were already nervous to begin with.
I was definitely nervous already, and I remember like right after the game, a fan ran from like the side, like you would see them do for like Ronaldo or something. And I was like, this
to go to you.
Yeah. And then the security was like blocking him. I was like, this, I can't believe it was happening. And then I just like really wanted to get into the locker room right after the game. And then Patrick Vieira was screaming at everybody because we had lost the game. And I was just there thinking like, what the hell is going on? And then got back to the hotel. All the fans were there asking for pay. I just kept my head down and went to the dinner, but I'll never ever forget that game.
Do you still have fans from St. Louis hit you up?
Sometimes they text me. On Instagram, like right after it happened, I got like a bunch of followers, and then we went to GA Cup, and all the comments were like, come to St. Louis, come to St. Louis, Cavani, Cavani.
Speaking of that, is there a reason you've had long hair?
I don't know if there's a reason. I've just always had it, and then I just kind of feel like it's me now. And I've had it since I was very young, like 10 years old, and I've never really felt like changing it yet.
Let's go back to, so you do well in that preseason. When you finally get the contract offer, what is the first thing you think about?
Yeah. I think, to be honest, I was quite confident that I would get it eventually. And I think that came from, just being in that environment, knowing the guys around me, the confidence that a lot of people gave me. But I actually had it over, Claudio Reyna told me about it like over lunch. He came by my school and we grabbed lunch. So like, when he does something like that, you kind of have an idea about what it's going to be. But once he finally told me, it was kind of like a bit of relief that it's finally happening, and then just excitement to get started because it's what every kid dreams about, and to finally know that you're almost there to complete achieving it, it's a great feeling.
It's interesting because it's like the end of something almost, but you're only really beginning, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like your youth career is kind of over, but I was still young, 17, so I would still go down to play academy games sometimes. And now your professional career is started and it's your job now, so you have to use those disciplines that you learn from all the guys that have been through it all and just try to do your best.
And you had obviously seen the pro level with the trainings, but what are some things as you continue your development that you still hold high for yourself or think these are the keys that, you know, that your non-negotiables?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing, I think almost any player would tell you, is just the speed of the game. Difference between the academy and the professional level is much faster. Obviously, it's more physical because guys are bigger and stronger, but just being able to do things that you would do 3 and 4 touches in the academy, do it 1, 2 touches, you know, keeping the game simple, especially for a player in my position, like center mid, center back. And I would say that's really the key, the speed of the game.
How did it feel when you finally made your debut? Do you remember? Can you talk us through that?
Yeah. My debut, I was very lucky with some of these games because my debut came versus Cincinnati, and we were already winning like 4-2, but Pep Guardiola was in the stadium. So like 10 minutes before I went on, they showed him on the big screen, and like everyone in the crowd was going crazy. And then finally I got on with like 10 minutes left in the game. We scored a goal, so that was nice, you know, got to celebrate. And I touched the ball. All the fans were going crazy when it happened, so that was a nice moment. And then after the game in the locker room, Pep Guardiola came in and shook everyone's hand, and he was like, "Congratulations, how does it feel?" And I was just good because I was nervous as well. But that was another great moment that I'll never forget.
You've seen now, being at the first team level for a while, you've seen other probably younger kids come through, you see players develop. What advice would you give to a younger kid that are like the most important things that they should be doing, thinking about that you see lead to success?
One of the most important things that not too many people say first is to enjoy it, because I think there's a lot of, like I even said that you have to work hard every single day, but if you're not really enjoying it, then you're just gonna burn yourself out or get tired of it, and you're gonna stop wanting to do that extra work. But when you're really enjoying it every day, you want to get better, especially if you're doing it with your friends. Like when I was in these academy teams, you know, these guys are still my brothers. Still talk to a lot of them every day, have really good relationships, and I think that helped a lot, you know, creating that community. So just having fun with your teammates, really enjoying the process, I would say is one of the big ones. And at the same, like, not being in too much of a rush to make it professional, because everyone wants to go pro. Everyone is like, I can't wait to go pro, but just enjoying the time in the academy, because you're only going to have that opportunity for so many years. Enjoying the trips you take with them, spending time with each other, I would say is very key. And then in terms of work, I would say when you're younger, a lot of ball work, like I said, playing games all the time helps a lot. Academy does a really good job now because they play top level teams all the time, traveling and stuff. So I would say those are the keys.
What were some of the challenges maybe of playing in New York City as a kid? You know, what are some areas that maybe a pro, but also like some cons?
Yeah. I would say I was lucky, as I said before, but it's very normal for kids to have like trouble finding good level games to play. And even like when I was playing, you know, we were playing on the asphalt in the park. It's not like we had a nice or a decent turf field with goals and stuff. It was kind of just like make the field whatever you can find. But slowly, I think you're starting to see more fields pop up where if you go back to my elementary school now, they have a turf field with little goals. So that's improving. And then I would say that's like the main negative of growing up in the city. But at the same time, you know, there's so many kids in the city, so I think now it's easier to find people who like soccer, especially with how it's growing in this country.
So many different backgrounds too. Do you think that helps?
Yeah, definitely. My group that I said in elementary school, they were from all over the place, and the game brings everyone together.
That leads me to my next question. So Maxime, an ex-teammate of yours, is starting up this academy, La Fabrique Academy in New York City, because kind of everything you've said, he's fallen in love with the city and the young talent here. Be honest with me, like as someone who played with him when you were young and through, how is he with the younger kids? Did he help you? Can you tell us some stories?
Maxime, I've always considered like an older brother almost. He's always helped me since before I got my contract till after I got my contract, when I was playing, when I wasn't playing, always that, because he's been through it all. He's played in many countries, seen many different players, and there was like a few times in my career that I wasn't maybe getting everything that I wanted, and he'd be there to remind me, just keep working hard, be patient. Everyone's timing is different. And then on the field, he's always been the captain. Since he's been at NYCFC, I've always seen him as a leader. He's always had a big voice in the locker room, and guys always have respected him. So he knows what he's doing from a leadership perspective. He's seen everything from a soccer perspective in the game, played in different countries, and working with the young guys since I was 16, he's always had my back and been there to keep me focused.
So you see, like learning from someone like him as a major benefit.
I think it's the best way to learn for example, similar to when Patrick Vieira was the coach here. Someone like Maxime, Patrick, who've played at a high level, played for many years, and they know how to develop young players.
It must be amazing to be that kid from New York and play in your team. What is it like to just walk around the city, and like, what is the soccer culture like for you off the pitch? How would you describe it to somebody? You know it probably better than anyone.
It's definitely growing, and it's becoming very, very popular. And now when I go to the parks a lot, people will recognize me, and they're like, "Oh, do you play for NYCFC?" So I think, especially with this club, NYCFC, they brought a lot of eyes to the league, and you see almost whenever I go outside to a field or a little park somewhere, there's guys playing soccer. So I think it's going in the right direction, and it's very exciting, especially with the World Cup coming soon.
What's your mentality at this stage in your career? Do you still think about it the same way as like when you were 10 or 15, or probably what has changed?
I try to think of it the same way, like just enjoying every training, enjoying moments with my teammates, and trying to have fun, but at the same time, it's your career, and you want to have the best career you can have possible. So as I took steps when I was younger, I'm still trying to take steps now, whether it's be play for a bigger club or play in bigger leagues, get a better role within the team. And I think my goal has always been, since a young kid, to play in Europe, and that's still my dream, and I'm still working for it every day.
What has been some of the best advice you've gotten, maybe 3 best pieces of advice you've gotten since you were a kid to now?
The first one I would say is the one I said earlier about 10 minutes every single day, because it's easy to forget about it, like, oh, if I don't train for 5 minutes today, it's whatever, but it really adds up every single day, and that could make the difference in the end. Another great piece of advice I had is have patience, because everyone's journey is different. A lot of my teammates, we play for their first team now, but we took many different routes to get there. And then another piece of advice, one that Maxime told me, would be if someone has an apple, sometimes you can't just ask for it, you have to go take it. So as much as you have to be patient, sometimes there's opportunities in front of you that you just have to go after it, and you need to be smart there and know when it's your time to go after it.
Can you talk a little bit more about that? Because breaking into a first team where you have a man lock that position down and you have to come and take it as a young guy is not easy.
No, definitely not.
Tell us a little bit about the behind the scenes of that. It must be very hard mentally and everything, right?
The teams I've been a part of they always help the young guys out, but at the end of the day, you're kind of coming for somebody's job. So there's always that in the back of people's minds, and I think you have to look at your game, look at their game. What can you do better? What do they do better? And try to take bits and pieces from everyone's game and just try to improve yourself, because every day, you're really competing with yourself. And if you can make yourself into a better player, maybe you'll get the role at that team, or maybe another team will come and want you. So I think the main focus should always be just improving yourself every single day.
That's great advice. What would be some concrete, like on the pitch advice you would give to a midfielder, to like a young kid?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing that you're not really taught at many teams in anywhere would be to check your shoulder, because the more you can have a full picture in your mind about what's going on, especially from a young age, the easier the game will be. And if you just get into that habit very young, once you get older, you won't even have to think about it, and you'll just be one step ahead of everybody. And that's the biggest part of a midfielder. You have to know when to go forward, when to slow the game down. You have to be ready to attack and defend. So just being one step ahead of everybody is key.
I think that reminds me of seeing somebody like Andrea Pirlo play. Like, he played with his head.
Yeah.
You talk about it, would that fit, you think?
Yeah, 100%. Even Lampard, I saw a video like a few weeks back where he checks his shoulder like 10 times in 10 seconds. So someone like Pirlo, he wasn't the most athletic, especially when he was playing here, but he always knew where the next pass would go. And that's why it's so hard for defenders to get the ball from him. Same with Busquets, you see now in Miami. He's not super athletic, but he always knows where the defender's coming from, or where the pressure is coming from, and where the next pass has to go. And that would allow these guys to be so good.
Who has been the best player you think you've played against so far?
I mean, just a few weeks ago we played Miami, so obviously Messi. But a guy that's not like really a big name like Messi, I would say, is Lucho Acosta at Cincinnati. He really surprised me the first time I played him, because he's super short, similar to Messi, but he's so quick, and he sees every pass going forward, and it's very hard to mark.
What about in training? Who's the maybe the guy you didn't want to go up against because it was going to be a battle?
When I was younger, David Villa was always like top class ever. You could see by his first touch, the way he would finish. He was definitely the best player that I've ever trained with. And then close to him, Maxi Morales has always been top class in training. He's another super small guy, but so hard to get the ball from him. And him, similar to Acosta, he picks out these passes to the strikers that's so hard to defend against.
Who's been your funniest teammate?
I would put two people. I would say Andres, Jason, and since the academy, and then Maxime actually has a few jokes in him. So,
what is your favorite game you've ever played in?
There's a few. I would put the Mexico game in preseason. Then this Columbus Crew game in Columbus, when I scored my first goal for NYCFC, because it was one of the loudest stadiums I've ever been in. And then the third one, I would say, when we won the national championship U19 year with the academy. It was one of the first trophies I've ever won, and doing it with like the guys I've been with for 4 or 5 years, it was a great feeling.
What is maybe the most difficult or worst memory you've had in soccer?
One is definitely when we lost to Philadelphia Union last year in the Eastern Conference Finals, because we would have went to back-to-back MLS Cup Finals, would have been very big for the team. And then there was one game in GA Cup. It was the first game of the tournament versus Atletico Paranaense, and I got a red card in like the 60th minute, so I was very devastated then.
Well, Justin, thank you so much for joining us. To everybody watching, I hope you got some good advice from New York City, born and bred professional soccer player. But thanks so much, Justin.
No problem.